Hello and good afternoon. My name is Andrea Sztojánovits and my VJ name is Attaray Visual. And I will talk about VJing as a method. I wrote my dissertation about this in Hungarian language. So that's why you see half Hungarian, half English in the text. And this is my first lecture about it. So I wrote a lot of things, and I try to somehow say what I mean about method, VJing method. And I would like to start with my story. Myself, when I was a child, I was playing piano, classical piano. It was like I will be a piano player, but I missed something, which is improvisation. I really love to play on the piano, being in the music, but I felt not full freedom as myself. And when I was around 20 years old, I went my first techno party. And it was like a wow feeling, you know that feeling? I don't know different word about this. And I felt like it's something like Rachmaninoff, the deep basses and continuous and meditation and circulation and loop and ancient feeling with electronics. So I began to make visual at those parties. It just came. And I felt my missing point as a musician in visual improvisation. And I began to use my setup as a piano or as an instrument, but I could free myself in thoughts totally, and I couldn't be wrong, in as when you are VJ at a party, you cannot be wrong if you sound red or blue, anything. So it was a really good playground for studying this inside technique. What is improvisation? So that feeling, what I try to catch somehow. That's why I say VJing as a method. And okay, you see some questions that, okay, what is VJing, and so on. And the self-expression, is it existed in art history, the visual self-expression like this way, like a real-time way, and so on. And I would like to start with, I think it's really important, the process of VJing and digital art and every art which use technology, that we need, I think, three basic points. One is the notion, the other is the needs. When we feel that we need to do something, we have the notion about something, and we need the technology for this. And sometimes we need to stay just in a notion, and if we have needs or not, maybe we don't have the technology to do it. So sometimes we need to wait for the technology to be able to do something. Sometimes if we just experience the technology, that will cause a feeling that we need to do something, and that's why we will have a notion. So I think it's really important in electronic art, digital art, and in VJing too, that it's some kind of sport with technology, but it's not a new stuff. I just put in a picture. Maybe I think everyone knows. It was in any time they experienced with technology what they had at that time. So we do the same. But today is a really interesting point, because how can we go close to VJing? What is this? Where does it came from? And I found a really good method for research. That there is a 4-point aspect. One is a self, subjective. One is the we, together, subjective. There is an objective and a group objective points. And they put these 4 aspects to measure VJing. And the first aspect is the objective, which is the social interaction, what is around us, like in the 21st century, like screenager generation and multitasking and so on. The second is, which is the subjective point of when we measure VJing, is the party culture. So what is the connection between the party culture and the visual, so like techno music and visual, and electronic music and visual. The third aspect is the visual background, it's art history. It's like visual music. This is as if we talk about VJing as a genre, we can put these 2 aspects, like party culture and art history. And I'm sorry, yes, I will talk about this later. This is just a figure about art genres in the past and in the present. And the 4th aspect is the VJ himself or herself. What kind of feelings going inside, like in psychological way. So I had these 4 aspects to somehow try to go closer what is VJing. And I would like to reach a point when if you are not in a party, if you are not in a background like this, which catalyzed the VJing, the freedom, the playground, what kind of experiences we can use, maybe in painting or sculpturing or any other kind of art forms. And I go through a little bit in just a small historic way. I apologize, but I needed to put VJing to categories. And this is absolute subjective categories of mine. I think the first, and I think it from party culture aspect, because the VJing exists from party culture time. The 90s was a really big happening of techno parties, electronic skis. The technology was totally renewed. We begin to have computers and like Amiga and the others, but we could program and we could experience not just with VHS or Super 8 films. It was a really new language, the computer language, and VJs in that time begin to use the computer language as a visual language form in real time too. But in that time, the computer was not so fast. And for example, who did 3D animations in that time recorded in VHS cassette and could play the 3D animation real time just from the cassette because the computer couldn't do it. And around 2000, the computer reached the processing time in real time, so we could really play real time with visual. It was a really low resolution picture. There was really bad pictures, scratched pictures, glitch pictures. Yes, so really not so aesthetic. So everything what came we played. It was the playground for the feeling to really play live. So it doesn't matter what is going on the screen. It was what matters that we could be able to play live with visual. And this was the first period of real VJing, and people begin to write softwares like Resolume and after Modulate, and I think you know a lot of softwares from this time, but they build the softwares in video-based thinking. When you have A, B, C, D inputs, and you have a mixer, and you mix the picture in different kind of ways, like wiping or fading. But the thinking of the software architecture was totally video based. And after, and you know, this mixing came from the thinking of music to table and the mixer. So we use this shame. And after software developers begin to write softwares in modular system, and you know this from music like modular synthesizer. So we used absolute, again, the shame of the music. But when you have a modular software, it's a big turn because you are able to build your own visual instrument. So you don't have the whole platform ready. You should put in your modules and build your own instrument. And it was, again, a big step in VJing, that we could use the modules as a visual programming language that we build our own system. And after, it was really quick that visual programming languages became so popular, and VJs begin to write really their own softwares. And it was again a big turn because we began to go a step from the video-based thinking, and we did a big step to real-time thinking in software developing too. So not just in mixing, in thinking mode too. And after came, you know, the World Wide Web in our life, and this thinking, this computer thinking, went to the web and begin to grow big communities worldwide. So we had the opportunity to exchange videos, make visual communications with other countries, and we are able to mix without a video mixer. We was able to mix without being in the same space, so through a router. So if somebody was in Helsinki and the other was in Budapest, we could mix together in totally real time without any cable. And this was, for example, the Flexor software. This is an Italian software, and the developer of the software is the boss of the AV node community. And he said that he tried to build a software which has web-based thinking. And you know, they are Italians, and they thought about a big orchestra, like a big family. So they built this software without the mixer, just to be able to play live really together, like 10 people and so on. So it was a big step again in the system, but we already had just one canvas, you know, this one, what we use now, and this one, what I see in my monitor. And after we begin to expand our thinking, because we reached something inside the box, inside the computer box, and it was not enough to project just on one canvas and make a virtual reality inside this monitor-based shape. And we began to think, expand our vision in space too. So there began the architectural mapping. I think you all know this style. They begin with projecting on buildings. You can say that the building is a canvas too, but the expanded thinking you need to use for it, because if you use the building as a canvas, you won't go inside and you won't be able to think in a real space. So this was like a kind of expanded thinking, expanded thought. And after, yes, came, this was a projection mapping, and after came the pixel mapping, like with LEDs. And it's a really interesting thing that in the beginning of 20th century, they said that they used color organs or light organs. Now we are able to use geometry organs. So we are able to totally manipulate the space, not just in effects, not just in colors or any kind of inside stuffs. We are able to manipulate the whole space. So we can use our system, our controlling system, like keyboard or MIDI or anything, to control the geometry of a space in real time again. So it was really again a big jump, and the interesting that I see many of us use again just white light, and it's amazing that we began techno parties with a stroboscope, so it was totally white, and we now use controlled white lights in really many places. So I think it was around 20 years, but we did a really big round in thinking, in visual thinking, and we arrived to the VJ, that how it feels to do a set. There is a really good book. The writer name is Timothy Jäger, and he says in the book a sentence that it's being in the mix. So you are in the state that you are totally inside your mix. And there is another writer, he's a psychologist, Hungarian psychologist called Dr. Elemér Gyulai. And in 1960, he did a really good experiment with people. They painted pictures with music, and they painted pictures without music. And he measured the difference between the two outputs. And it was totally real that with music, the people, the painter, was more brave with colors, more brave with the movements on the picture. So the painting was more free to feel. And he said that there is two type of impression and reaction when we listen to the music. The first is like synesthesia, is a passive, reactive reaction when we don't think, just totally react to the music in some way. Somebody sees colors, somebody sees forms, somebody don't see anything, just smells something or nothing. And the other form is the active reaction, which is association, when your mind is totally inside and you think and do your job. And these two activities together are in VJing, and I think that's why. Okay, I could tell a lot more. And if you have question, I can, if I can answer. But I think that's why VJing is, you know, from academic style, they say that it's not an art form. From party culture aspect, they say that it's an art form. So I think it's rather a method, doing something, than an art form, because the output is always depends on what you do, but how you do is the feeling which is the most important in this case. Thank you.